So now you know why sugar is bad, how it's in our food, why it's in our food, but what do you do about it? So the first thing is identify your foods that do have added sugars. Okay. So we're not talking about the fruit. We're not talking about a whole fruit. We're not talking about vegetables that do have sugars, things like that, because you cannot change anything that you do not recognize, right? That you're not realistic about. So that's why you identify the foods first. Because a lot of people can say, oh, I don't eat sugar. I never eat sugar. But unless you might not know that you're eating sugar when you really are. A lot of times we just think sugar as candy, right? Those are the only foods with sugars in it. But when I went into the supermarket, even the Prego pasta sauce, the tomato sauce, has sugar in it. And I think it's like the third ingredient. So a lot of foods that you might not expect to have sugar may or probably do have sugar in them. So why would a food like Prego, like tomato sauce, have sugar? Well, my guess is for one of two reasons. One is I can tomatoes with my mother. And there was one year that she was annoyed that I planted them late in the greenhouse. But it was in a greenhouse. What does it matter? Like, there is no late in a greenhouse. You can grow things in a greenhouse in upstate New York through December. But anyway, so she was mad I planted them too late, and it was a weekend that she wanted to can tomatoes. So she made me pick all of these unripe tomatoes so we can can them instead of letting them sit for a few more weeks and become ridiculously delicious, because she did grow the best tomatoes I've ever had in my life. Anyway, so then we had a bunch of canned tomatoes that year that tasted terrible. They were really, really sour. They did not have good flavor. And she kept saying to me, just put sugar in it, just put sugar in it. And I'm just thinking that it defeats the whole purpose of going through the entire process of growing your own food if you're just going to put sugar in it. But so my guess is that's why Prego has sugar in it. I also took another look at the list of ingredients in Prego, and they also use corn oil or vegetable oil. And any Italian, right, will tell you they are not using corn oil. They are not using vegetable oil when they make their pasta sauce, which is called their gravy. They are using a good quality olive oil, which has a lot of flavor in it. So my guess is Prego has sugar because they probably use both low quality tomatoes and low quality oil, or one of the other, right? Either way is to give flavor to some of the lower qualities. But the thing is if you take a look at other pasta sauces, I promise you that there are other pasta sauces that do not contain sugar. So it's just a matter of reading the list of ingredients of other sauces and finding a different food item. Okay, so the only way to know really what types of sugar and if the sugars in the foods are okay is to always read the list of ingredients, right? And when you get used to reading the list of ingredients, you don't have to remember all the different types of sugars, right? You don't have to remember all these different types of ingredients that you don't want, whether it's sugar or whether it's like a soy ingredient or other ingredients that just are really undesirable. If you follow these 4 rules, okay? You don't have to remember specific ingredients. So avoid ingredients that you cannot pronounce, okay? So, like there's ingredients called like monodiglycerides, right? So if I take a long time and try and read it phonetically, yes, I can pronounce it, but it's definitely different than if it said like tomatoes, okay? So avoid ingredients you can't pronounce. Avoid ingredients you can't identify. You do put sugar to cut the acidity. Yes, but that's also, we're going to talk about that. So Andre said when she makes her own sauce, she does put sugar in it to cut the acidity. Yes, that's true. But do you put sugar in Prego was like either the second or the third list, the second or third ingredient on the list of ingredients. So that meant by volume, there was quite a bit in it. And also additionally, it's different when you can control it, right? So I'll talk about this in a little bit. I eat sugar probably every day. I'm not saying that you can't eat sugar, but when you control it, it's a lot different. Um, but yeah, that might be why they're putting it in the Prego or the olive oil. But you can also make pasta sauce without the sugar. Okay, so back to reading the list of ingredients. So the rules to follow. So avoid ingredients that you can't pronounce. Avoid ingredients that you can't identify. So, for example, in a lot of vegetarian foods, there's an ingredient called, and this is not sugar related, but it's called like soy protein isolate. So, can you figure out like, okay, I guess it's something from soy, yes, but do you really know what it is? No, you really can't identify what it is. So you want to avoid those ingredients. Avoid ingredients that you studied in chemistry class and avoid ingredients that your great grandmother would not recognize as food. So if you follow those 4 rules, and at the end of the class, I'll put those rules in the comments, and I'll put those rules in the comments, and then in the course portal, I'll also have some notes for those. But if you follow those 4 rules when you read the list of ingredients, you're going to cut out just a lot of this stuff that's not only sugar laden, but also poor oils and just ingredients that are very highly processed, very foreign to your body. Your body does incorporate them, but really doesn't know how to use them or how to work with them. And they just kind of gunk us up. So you're just going to eliminate a lot of different things that you don't need. And the good thing about food manufacturers is I have seen a huge improvement in the food ingredients since I've been reading the list of ingredients for the last 14 years. So for example, when I started doing this about 14 years ago in Cheerios, right, which is marketed as an oat product, there were more ingredients from corn than there were oats in the Cheerios. But now that they've changed that, right, they've changed it because consumers have become more savvy and demand better, right? We're paying money for this stuff and they're like telling us it's oats and it was mostly corn. So you can almost always find a product by reading the list of ingredients that's the same type of product but has an ingredient list that doesn't contain things you can't pronounce, things you can't identify, things your great grandmother wouldn't be able to identify, or things you didn't study in chemistry class. Okay. All right. So now, Andre, this is actually next is what I was getting to. So how else? What do you do with this information of how to cut down sugar? Well, again, all sugar isn't terrible. I eat sugar every day. I eat honey. I eat dark chocolate, which has some sugar in it. Once in a while, I bake. I actually think I'm going to bake banana bread when I'm done with this class. And there's probably other, right? Like I eat whole fruit, I drink whole milk, so that has sugar in it. I drink milk kefir and I put maple syrup in that. And I have several cups of tea with honey in it every day. But one way to reduce the amount of sugar is to, when you can control it, like when you're making your homemade pasta sauce, or say you put sugar in your coffee, is you can decrease the amount of sugar. So what I usually do when I'm baking is I usually decrease, like say cookies call for 1.5 cup of sugar. Actually, it's probably more like 1 3/4 cup of sugar, I think, for like chocolate chip cookies, right? I might reduce that amount to about 1 1/4. It depends on the recipe because there are some recipes that you can find that already have reduced sugar. But if you're looking on like the back of the Nestle chocolate chips, I believe it's like 1 3/4. And that's a lot of sugar and they come out really sweet. And so I just reduce it and I actually like it better because then I also use dark chocolate chips. So I like the flavor a lot better. So that's one thing you can do. If you put sugar in your coffee, for say, when I used to live in New York City and I moved there when in 1997. And that's when I started drinking coffee every day, right? Would get it from the deli before I would go to my internship. And I put like 4 packs of sugar in it. And I don't even remember why I decided to reduce the sugar. I have no clue why. Because it was a long time ago. It was, 22 years ago. Wow. But what I did to reduce the amount of sugar was one day I cut it down to 3 packs, right? And then I kept doing 3 packs for like a week or 2 weeks, right? Then I cut it down to 2 packs, right? Then I did that for a week and a half. And as I cut down the sugar, what I did was I realized, wow, I actually like the taste of coffee. So now I actually don't use any sugar in my coffee. So that's been 22 years. But I do use milk and cream. I like it really milky. But I had a choice the other week. I was in California, and the hotel room, it was like non-dairy creamer. And I read the list of ingredients, and it was like corn syrup and just all of these fake ingredients. So I actually can drink it black now. But if you are adding sugar to something that you're making yourself and you want to reduce the amount, the best way is to make slow reductions, right? And then reduce it by a little bit and go for a week or two so you get used to it, and it's really not a shock. It's really not that much of a change, because if you went from 4 sugars in a coffee to 0 sugars in a coffee, you'd be like, oh my gosh, right? Any of us would. You'd be like, whoa. So you just slowly reduce it. Okay. So now, drum roll, we're towards the end. Thank you all who held on there. So what foods can you use to replace some food items that have a lot of sugar? Okay. So if we have more sugar in our diet because we took less fat out, a great foods to replace the sugar-laden foods are going to be full-fat foods, right? Eating more fats. So this way, you're not going to deprive yourself on sugars. You're just making choices. Here's the sugar product I want. Here's this product that has fat in it. You're just making a choice to eat more products that have more fat in it than the products that have sugar in it. That way you're not depriving yourself. You're not saying I can't have this sugar product, right? But eat something with fat in it first, right? And then see how you feel. See if you still want it after that. So let me give you some examples of how to do this. Okay, so we talked about the fat-free half and half, right? So if you were using fat-free half and half, a much, much better alternative, or also those coffee creamers, sorry to tell you, I didn't even look at the list of ingredients of those, is it Nestle coffee creamers, which I used to use too myself. I used to eat just a ton of sugar, and I had infections just all the time, all different types of infections. So if you use fat-free half and half, if you use skim milk, if you use those Nestle creamers, a great way to change what your reduce your sugar consumption would be to use a full fat product, right? The regular half and half, just the milk and cream, right? It should just have 2 ingredients in it, milk and cream. Okay. Another great food to have to replace some of your sugar-laden foods is yogurt. The best yogurt that I can recommend is Fage. It's spelled Fage. They have a 5% total product, which means it has 5% fat in it. It has this ridiculously rich and creamy flavor. It's just so delicious. It's really high quality. I find the flavor of the Fage a lot. I find it tastes a lot better than Chobani. Let me mute my screen. And it's also made in Johnstown, New York. So Fage started out in Greece. In 2000, they opened up a plant in Johnstown, New York, in upstate. It's up like a little bit west of Albany. So you still are supporting New York farmers if you live here locally to me, because Chobani is made just a few towns away. But I think if you try a Fage and you have been eating Chobani and you get a plain yogurt, right, the 5% total plain, add real maple syrup or add raw honey to it, I think you're going to be like, oh my gosh, this taste is ridiculous. I actually have one of my one-on-one coaching clients. I got her eating Fage yogurt a few weeks ago, and she sent me a text last week, and she said, I ran out of yogurt, and I had to eat the yogurt in the cafeteria. And she wrote, barf! So terrible. So you're really going to notice a taste in the flavor. And when you have better flavor without fake ingredients, right, it's a higher quality product. So yogurt is a really, really great choice. of getting a full fat food into your diet instead of the sugar laden diets. Okay. And then when you're adding the real maple syrup and the honey yourself, you can control how much you put in it. So you can put less than what they put in it, in this when it's pre-made. Okay. So, and that's a good choice for breakfast, right? So that's a good choice instead of cereals. It's also a good choice for lunch. It's also a good choice for snacks as well. Um, so a lot of us, I was like this too, are used to eating cereals for breakfast, right? Or eating these breakfast pastries. And I know I used to feed my child Pop-Tarts and I'd send him to school and, there's just all these really processed sugars in it and I wasn't realize what I'm doing. But I'm sending him to school to use his brain, but yet I just kind of doped him up on sugar. So a better choice instead of the breakfast cereals, instead of the juice for breakfast, instead of the breakfast pastries, yogurt would be a really good choice. Again, if you're getting the plain yogurt and you flavor it and sweeten it yourself, you can control the sugar. But eggs are really, really terrific choice for breakfast. So I know if making eggs, yes, you'd have to make a little bit, if you're making them in the morning, you'd have to make a little bit more time. But when I started making scrambled eggs for my son, and I found that really I only needed like 5 minutes more to dedicate to it. It's really, really quick process, right? They cook really, really fast. If you don't even have 5 minutes in the morning, because I understand that everybody's life is different, and some people have to leave the house earlier than I used to have to. If you could make hard-boiled eggs on the weekend, you could do a dozen, and that way you have them on the go, right? You can just go and grab. But those are really good choices to replace the sugar-laden cereals and breakfast pastries. Okay. So other ways that you can replace high sugar foods with higher fat foods. So say, for example, you have prepackaged cookies or granola bars, things like that, and they contain a lot of sugar. Some really good snacks to replace them, and we send them even in with the kids to school, is good old cheese and crackers, right? Good old block of cheddar cheese, just cut slices off with some crackers, right? Just check the list of ingredients in the crackers and make sure that there's not sugars. There's always crackers that don't have sugar in them. But that's a really good alternative instead of all of these snacks. And actually, when you think about the cost, right, getting a block of cheddar cheese and a package of crackers probably costs less and you get more snacks out of it than if you had a granola bar, right? Definitely true with the eggs, right? You can get some really great eggs pastured from farmers, direct from farmers for about $2.50 for a dozen. I think that comes out to like 30 something cents per egg. Whereas if you get a box of cereal, they are so expensive and there's really not that many servings in them, right? There's really maybe 5 or 6 servings in a realistic servings, not what it says the serving size, but when you actually pour the bowl of cereal, but you only get like 5 or 6 bowls of cereal. And that's like $1 a bowl of cereal. If you eat 2 eggs, that's like less than 75 cents for 2 eggs. Okay. So cheese and crackers, you eat cheese and whole fruit together, right? You can eat cheese and crackers and whole fruit together. That's why that way, like you could get grapes, you could get other fruit. And these are easy ways to change snacks for kids too, right? Myself included, we're so used to just the prepackaged and the granola bars and this and that. And we can control or, reduce the amount of sugars for kids just by giving them simple things like well, at least my daughter does, and she's like ridiculous when it comes to food. Okay, so another way you can replace you can replace more fat for sugar is in your salad dressings. So if you read the prepackaged salad dressings, a lot of them have sugars in them. A lot of them have several sugars in them. So good old oil and vinegar, or you can find, I bet you can find, and I'm going to bet that maybe Newman's Own has like a good, nice, tasty oil and vinegar pre-made salad dressing that doesn't contain any sugar in it. Another great snack to replace like the cookies and breakfast pastries and the sugar laden snacks, the granola bars and stuff, is popcorn, right? It's actually really quick to pop it on the stove top. I prefer stove top over microwave because the microwave popcorn usually has like artificial flavors and stuff like that, and really lower quality oils. So I pop it on the stove top. I put coconut oil in the pan, probably a little bit less than a tablespoon. I put like a half a cup of popcorn in there after the coconut oil gets hot. Tip the cover up so the air, some moisture can come out, because that way the popcorn kernels are going to pop better. When they all pop, then I melt a little bit of butter and I put butter and salt on it. And all kids love that, right? All adults do too. That way you're getting you can control all of the ingredients. It's a really quick snack to make. I've even made it before work sometimes, and I bring a huge bowl of it, or when I used to have to go to the office, bring a huge bowl of it for lunch. I know that sounds crazy, but I would. So that's a really, really great way to replace some full fat foods, right? Because you're getting fat from the coconut oil and from the butter. And then all of those things plus the fiber keep you full really, really well. So apples and peanut butter is another snack that you can use to replace the sugar-laden foods, or raw nuts. Dark chocolate, I mentioned earlier, if you get it like 60% or more, yes, it's going to have sugar in it, but it's going to have very little sugar in it. And if you take a look at, like, say, a Milky Way, something like that, take a look at the list of ingredients, and cacao, which is what we call cocoa, but it's correctly pronounced cacao, which is the chocolate in it. So say like a Milky Way, it's going to be like, the cacao is going to be like in the middle towards the end of the list of ingredients after all these ridiculously amounts of processed sugar. But in dark chocolate, cacao should be the first ingredient, and then you'll have sugar, right? And then you'll have whatever it's flavored with, right? Whether it's almonds or cherries. And so again, you can eat some sugars, but we just want to reduce it. And when we do have the sugars, we want to have other things like fat and protein with it. So like in dark chocolate, that has both fat and protein. And when sugars are eaten with fat and protein, they are digested a lot slower, right? So if you have like that fat-free hot most of it is sugar. So we absorb really quickly and packed away as fat. When you're eating sugar and the dark chocolate, something like that, or in your own tomato sauce, Andre, it's got fat in it, right? Because you're putting oil in the tomato sauce, and the dark chocolate has fat and it has protein in it. And so it gets digested a lot slower. So eating fat is going to keep you full longer, which I think I might have talked about earlier. So if you, again, I did talk about this earlier, right? Say you're in the movie theater, right? And you get a box of candy and it's all different sugar products. You're really hungry right afterwards, right? But are you really hungry if you eat the bowl of popcorn that has a lot of fat and stuff? No, you're full. You get filled up. Okay. So also eating the fat when you're, instead of just depriving yourself from sugar, right? Because that was the point of making it so you're not depriving yourself. You're not like going through a withdrawal. When you eat the fat, you actually have fat loving microbes too, right? You have the sugar loving microbes and you have the fat loving microbes. So the reason why eating fat instead of sugar-laden food, and instead of just going through withdrawal and just, depriving yourself of sugar, so specifically eating more fat works better in replace of sugar, is because your microbes that eat fat, right, that love fat, are then going to be able to grow in bigger colonies, and they're going to crowd out, they're going to drive out the sugar-loving microbes, okay? The ones that are sending you those cravings, right? The feed me. So the fat-loving microbes are going to take care of the sugar-loving microbes, and you're not going to have those cravings. You're not going to have to use willpower. You're not depriving yourself of anything, right? You actually feel good and you feel full because you've added more fat to your diet. Okay. So again, even though I already talked about that. that we're talking about the gut microbiome in the June class. Okay, so what if I only have a little bit more? So thank you all for holding on. If you're still holding on, I'm almost done. So let's see, eating fat, microbes. Okay, so how do you say, for example, if you were addicted to sugar, not sugar, soda? I used to be addicted to Diet Coke when I lived in New York City. I used to be able to drink a 2 liter in one night, not even a day, a night after I got home from work. And my son used to go to a daycare, and there was a grocery store. We would walk from the daycare to home, and there was a grocery store right near the daycare. And when I was addicted to Diet Coke, I would get off the train and I'd say, I'm not going to get Diet Coke today, because I knew how bad it was for me. And I was like, I'm not getting it. I'm not getting it. I'd go pick up Quentin and I'd say, I'm not getting it. I'm not getting it. And we would walk by the grocery store, and the door to the grocery store was at the end of it. And it was like, it was like I was possessed. I just took my stroller and I was like, woo, into the grocery store to get the Diet Coke, right? I used to be convinced that there was something in the Diet Coke that made us do it. And now I understand it's our gut microbes, right? So yes, you can eat you can eat beverages that have more fat, like milk, like a whole milk or something, in replacement of the soda. What I used was a sparkling mineral water to get myself off of Diet Coke, because I didn't even know why it was bad. I just knew it was bad, and I knew drinking a 2 liter of it, like downing it in an evening, was definitely not good. But I also found, because the Diet Coke, honestly, if you're a Diet Coke fan too, it really actually doesn't taste very good. It doesn't have a great taste. I noticed that, hey, Paul, so what I did was I started drinking the sparkling mineral water, and it was the bubbles, right? It was the bubbles on my throat that I liked, and it was enough. It was it gave me enough from the Diet Coke. So the bubbles from the sparkling mineral water got me to be able to get off the Diet Coke habit. So that's one way. If you drink a lot of soda, or you drink a lot of diet soda, that's how you can also help yourself to get off of that. So you could, again, add fat, have beverages that have fat in it, like milk, things like that. Or you can also try the sparkling mineral water. And if you are drinking soda or diet soda, chances are you have other items that have sugar in your diet, and you're going to be replacing those items with fat foods, right? So you'll probably be okay with just using like sparkling mineral water for your soda. Okay, so now I wanted to talk really quickly about the best sugars to consume. So those are going to be your honey, right? Your real maple syrup, your stevia. And I'm talking about, like, if you have a stevia plant, like I'm talking about like the leaves from the stevia plant, because stevia is a plant, right? It has green little leaves. But when you buy the stevia, and I don't even know what it's called, but it's like made into sugar crystals, right? That's kind of like equivalent to confectioner sugar, right? So confectioner sugar is made from sugar, but it's so highly processed and refined that it's like a white powder. So the stevia is the plant is like a little green leaf, and then we're making it into like this white crystal. So stevia is going to be good if you have a plant in your home, which some people do, and they take a leaf and they stick it in their coffee or tea, right? When I say stevia, that's what I mean. So molasses is going to be another good one. Turbinado sugar, sugar cane, like the whole sugar cane, or sugars that are in whole foods like fruits, vegetables, and some dairies. So why are these sugars better than your other highly refined sugars? One is, so when sugars are in whole foods, they're not just sugar, right? Even a sugar cane, right? The actual sugar cane isn't just sugar. Again, it's got a lot of B vitamins in it. It's got a lot of minerals in it. It has other nutrients, and that slows down the absorption of the sugar. So that's what molasses and turbinado sugar is too. So molasses, why it's so dark, it's actually a lot of the minerals from sugar, from the processing. When they take the crystals and they put them over here and they put everything over here, molasses is a byproduct, but it contains a lot of the minerals and vitamins. Turbinado sugar is the sugar crystals, but it's got some molasses in it, so that could be a better choice. And then honey, and then again, the sugars when they're in fruits and vegetables and in dairy products, so in whole foods, they're attached to proteins, and they've got fat in there, and they've got other co-substrates and substrates in there, so that when you eat them and you digest them, they're not absorbed as easily and quickly as, say, all of the sugars in a Milky Way candy bar. Okay, so one sugar, which I haven't talked about, I did have it on my list for the pre-work or the post-work, is agave, right? Agave is marketed as a healthier sugar alternative. So the problem that they found with agave is that it's all fructose. So again, it's kind of like the high fructose corn syrup. It's very difficult on your liver. It puts a lot of work. It puts a lot of strain on your liver, and it causes damage to your liver. So that's why agave is not on my list of some of the best sugars to consume. Okay, so I'm actually finally at the end. So now let's see if there's any other questions. So I don't see any, but feel free to type them in. If there aren't any questions, just wanted to announce the next class. So when you subscribe to this, you subscribe to a monthly membership. The next class is going to be, so you automatically just get billed if you want to stay a subscriber. The next class is going to be how to reduce your grain consumption without deprivation or willpower. So again, just like today, I'll be the same exact kind of format. We'll talk about grains. We'll talk about why we eat so many grains. We'll talk about hidden grains, and then we'll talk about what foods to eat in replace of grains if you find that you're eating too many grains. And I'm actually going to do that class on Sunday, May 5th. So when I first started promoting this class, the one that I'm doing right now, the one that I'm finishing, I thought it was going to take me several weeks to sell some classes. So that's why I started promoting it, I think 3 or 4 weeks before we actually had the class. And I started getting sales right away. And most of you actually purchased the class right away. So then it was like, many weeks until the actual class. And so I want to make good for those, for everybody who purchased the class like 3 weeks ago. So I'm going to move the next class up to Sunday, May 5th, so that you don't have to, and then that way it'll kind of even out like the people who purchased the class so early in advance. And give them time to decide if you want to continue with the next class or not. So if you do end up wanting to unscribe at any time, just send me an email, send me a message, and I will take care of that on the back end. But if you come up with any questions after I'm done with this live, please feel free to send me a private message. You can email me. You can just reply to the email that I sent to you about the class, or you can send me a private message on Facebook. Ask me any questions. You have unlimited access to me. I will have this class up on the class portal by Tuesday. I'll put captions on it, and I'll actually kind of edit it into sections so that if there's like a 10-minute section you want to see, you can just access that easily. And that's it. So again, next month's class is going to be how to reduce the amount of grains you consume without focusing on deprivation and willpower. And then the class in June, we're going to talk about all about the microbiome. We're going to talk about probiotics, prebiotics, what these microbes are, what the microbiome is, and how to populate your gut microbiome using food instead of expensive supplements. And then before the June class, I will, in the Facebook group, I will poll all the members and see what you're interested in for the July class and classes on thereafter. But thank you all for joining me. I'm so excited. It's my first online live class. Thank you. I so appreciate your support. I'm so grateful. Thank you so much for just being here for me and believing in me. It's been wonderful. And again, ask any questions anytime you like. I hope you all enjoy your evening. I hope you all enjoy your week ahead of you.